This is Tell Me What to Read, powered by Booktopia. I'm Nick Wasiliev, and today I am back talking about the Byron Writers Festival again, which is coming up this coming weekend, the 24th to the 26th of August. And with it so close, I'm so lucky enough to sit down with two incredible authors, the first of which is the one and only Trent Dalton. You know him from, of course, Love Stories, All Our Shimmering Skies, Boy Swallows Universe. List goes on and on and on. Trent, how are you?
Oh, Nick, I'm really well. I'm always really well talking to you, mate. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to chat to you, and you're very welcome. And I want to also, first of all, start by sending some love from our team, specifically Ben Hunter, who sends his regards, and he says, "Tell him I want pages soon. I need pages for whatever you're working on."
Really? He's speaking of love stories. I love that Ben Hunter. He's one of the great, you know. I'm sure he's sung about, but I was about to say unsung heroes, because I'll be singing about him for quite some time, but of the sort of Australian publishing industry. He's so supportive. And you know what? I should have a picture of Ben, as I'm about 20,000 words away from finishing my next fiction book. So I will have Ben in mind when gosh. As I approach that wonderful kind of downhill slope of, getting towards the end. So it's coming, dear Ben, and I love you, man.
Oh, that is so exciting. He is going to love that. Much love from all the team. We absolutely love chatting with you. And let's start by talking about Love Stories, of course. It's been having such an awesome run, winning among things the Indie Book Awards Book of the Year, casually. How is it? Does the reaction always kind of surprise you, even whenever you put something out there, no matter what it is?
Oh, Nick, I tell the story all the time. All I have to do is think of this woman, beautiful woman named Mrs. Garside, my year 6 teacher, who told my old man at a parent-teacher night that I was destined to become the leader of an outlaw motorcycle gang. So it's like I go back to that on a permanent basis. And so everything, from there is gravy and, cherries on top. And but you do these things. That Love Story has been incredibly surprising, because that thing started out as this kind of wild idea. I remember talking to Catherine Milne, my editor, and just saying, hey, I want to do this thing where I spend 2 months on a corner asking people about love. And it was kind of, it was kind of also, as many things, it was a tribute to my mate's late mum, who gave me amazingly bequeathed me this beautiful 1960s Olivetti typewriter. But also, I always saw it as this wonderful research exercise for my next fiction book. So it was kind of, my next fiction book is a love story. And I wanted to just get back on the streets and be among people. It's really good. This is sort of something from my journo years. It's kind of really good to pound the pavement. It's just really good for the soul. And you pound the pavement, you go out onto a corner, and some guy tells you, some random dude, possibly on drugs, comes past and says, I'm going to drive your effing head into the concrete. And you learn so much about yourself from that. And it's so good to get out of the clouds of All Our Shimmering Skies and Boy Swallows Universe. It was so good. So there was all these wonderful personal reasons why I was doing it. And there, I don't know, maybe there's something in that, Nick, too, that night of that Indie Book Awards was incredible to me, because it was just it felt right to do Love Stories. It felt right. It felt really good. And it felt like a really humbling thing to do, and I can always use a good humbling, and then for the people behind Indie Book Awards to kind of acknowledge it in that way was really surprising, but immensely gratifying to me, I really was writing that from the right place, and I think I get so proud when I see people react to it the way they have, because it was coming from a very true place, and a very uncynical place, and I'm so proud and I'm so grateful that readers have brought a lack of cynicism to it as well. And, I'm such a bloody cheeseball sometimes, but there's such darkness in that book as well. Like there's and I think that's what people are starting to get, which I really love. They're like, I saw the cover and I thought it'd be the most cheesiest book around, but now I read it and I realized that it tapped into all my dark places as well. And that's the sort of stuff. It's almost a year on since kind of I last even spoke to you about it, Nick, and you're a beautiful blessing over the book. You guys were so supportive right from the start, and thank you so much, Booktopia. But mate, I'm kind of walking on air, because of it, and it's very, very inspiring as you go into the next mountain to climb, which is a fiction book, you know.
It felt like the right book for the times. That's kind of
Right.
the more we've kind of sat on it. Like, I mean, I've shared it with so many of my family and friends as well, because
wow.
it just
Thanks,
felt like
Nick.
it just felt like the right book for the times that we were in, especially, you know, over the last 2 years of
Yeah.
not really feeling the love. But also,
Yeah.
it's been, you know, it's such a, I think it just really captured that love in all its forms. And so it's one of the most human experiences it is. And of course, to try and catch that in one book is incredibly difficult and probably nigh on impossible, but
Yeah.
you had an amazing crack at it. And I just love the idea
Nick,
of it
thank you.
being sentimental writer collecting love stories. It's
Be unashamed about it. Yeah.
be
Like
unashamed about it.
yeah. Put yourself in the vulnerable place, you know, like it's so easy to be for someone to take the piss out of that, you know, and I got that. And it felt like that out on the street. Like it was so easy for people to walk past and go, what the hell are you doing, you idiot? Like why would you expect that anyone would stop and sit next to you and actually tell you a love story? Well, that thing is the coolest part about humans, is that people will give someone a go if they're just trying to help someone out. Like people didn't want to make me feel like an idiot, which is why I think they sort of started to stop, you know, and then when they see one other person stopping, then they go, what's going on here? Like, this is so unusual, you know, and that was the beautiful thing, Nick. Like it started to be so unusual. And just the very reading of that book is unusual. It just doesn't. Anyway, I was very, anyway, I just felt like all of those things, the fact that it was so unexpected and so unusual, and but also it's what I needed, you know, that's the thing. Like, I mean, that book, Nick, you know, between us and your beautiful, you know, audience, like I needed it, you know, there were things regarding people I love deeply that I was trying to work out, you know, and massive flaws in who I have been as a man, looking for, chasing certain things, whatever, and I could trace that right back to Boy Swallows Universe, you know, where I invest my energy in perhaps places where I need to put my energy into something like Boy Swallows Universe, and then, boy, don't even get me started on why I needed to do that. But the cost of that is love, is me not working at, you know, the most important things in my world. And it was such a great time to take stock and sort of go, okay, Trent, let's reacquaint ourselves with that concept of love. So you might be better at it, at kind of being there for the people who really need you, you know, and not just your freaking self like you have been for the past 4 years, you know.
I love that this book taught you as much as anything else. I mean, whenever we talk with authors, like,
oh man,
often writing a book, you often can say to, you know, what do you want your audience to get out of it? And the truth is you never know, because everyone reacts to a book differently. But often books teach you as an author so much. And I love that this book put you in that place for yourself in terms of learning about what love meant for you.
Oh, Nick, I mean, it was so funny. Like right now, I haven't really said this to anyone. My wife and I are currently doing script development with the guys who made Boy Swallows Universe into a play up here in Brisbane. They're turning love stories into a play. And my wife, Fiona, and I just kind of asked them, like, hey, like, we weren't involved on Boy Swallows Universe at all, but I said, look, this one I would love to just add one kind of bit, and that's the dialogue between the writer when he comes home and talks to his wife. And I go into it a little bit. It's a bit of an arc in love stories, but the play, and it's been amazing, Nick. Like, my wife and I have been just going so deep, man. Like, we're writing dialogue that is so deep about long-term relationships. Like, it's like we've been together for 22 years, and it's like this. That's so complex. Like, there's just so much history there about love and regarding love and how to make that work. And we're just letting rip, man. Like, we're just going so hard and just owning, like, every struggle, every beautiful thing, and writing literally sort of scenes of dialogue that will inspire, that will inform this play. And I'm learning so much, Nick. Like, it's just so brilliant. This is the power of words. It's the power of writing. And it was me going to do. Why was I even on that corner? It was hilarious. It was like, why am I on that corner? Why am I asking 200 strangers to tell me love, right? And then I realized halfway through, like, And I think even someone even told me this. One of the people I spoke to, this beautiful guy, was telling me all about why I should hug my children longer than 3 seconds, like just go a 30-second hug. He's that guy. But he also was telling me about how, like, have you asked your wife this question? Like, have you asked the woman that you've been with for 22 years and you told her 22 years ago that you love her, but how, have you really properly expressed to her, just how much she means to you 22 years later? And it was sort of so hilarious that I would go out onto the street and ask total strangers and sit there like a lapdog. Like, you should see me, Nick, when I'm hearing and when I'm listening to these people. Like, it's like you have never been so freaking listened to than when I'm sitting on that corner, because I'm so wanting to keep them on the chair sitting next to me because I don't want to be alone on the freaking corner. And how ridiculous that I wouldn't engage like that, that I would just be sort of treat my own freaking love life like as this pedestrian kind of thing, that just I come home and we do the dishes, do dinner and go to bed, whatever, and not actually go deep with my own wife. So, man, just like literally in the past couple of days, I've been going so deep with Fiona, and it's been so illuminating. It's just been the most beautiful thing. It's just that idea of just attacking the thing that's awkward. And, it makes for really good writing. It always does.
That's
just
wonderful.
attack that awkward thing. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. I love that's the directions that this book is going and the things that you get to do with it. It's amazing.
Oh, man, this is the thing. You put something out there and then it comes back to you, let alone just what people might say to you and go, hey, this book started off getting me through this weird, whatever, pandemic time or whatever, or lockdown that I was in. I was in Melbourne. I was in lockdown. And then it's shifted now to this book made me call my brother, who I haven't spoken to for 25 years. And it's like, that is what you don't expect. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Sorry, Nick, don't get me started, man.
we could go down a rabbit hole forever. But it highlights again the power of words. And with that, let's talk about the festival, the Byron Writers Festival.
Brilliant.
Because it's back for the first time in 2 years. What to kind of give some context for for a lot of our listeners, what is the significance of festivals, or specifically this festival for you? You're a local, you're just up the road from Byron in Brisbane. How important are these festivals?
Festivals are the connection that you realize you have that you never knew you had. And I tell, like, man, I can go so deep on that. So I'm right, Boys Swallows Universe, terrified of what I've written. Scared to death about how people are going to react to this thing. And then it sort of starts to kind of climb a little bit of a hill with people sort of reading it. And then you go, oh, wow, people are actually reading this thing. And then you get invited to like the Byron Writers Festival. And then you walk into a room and there's like, it's full. And then you start telling the real stories behind the semi-autobiographical story. And then you start crying on stage. And then this beautiful thing happens, Nick, where you go down to this thing called like the signing table, which I distinctly remember for the first time even doing it at Byron. And then readers come up to you and they say, you wrote 100,000 words about my mum. You wrote 100,000 words about how much I love my older brother. My dad was in prison. You have shown me a way to love him. And, that's only because of festivals where it is this absolute dialogue between the person that matters most, the reader, and it's your chance to actually talk directly to them. And, and then Byron Bay, okay, well, you just throw in the best sort of place on earth and, the beach and the sunshine and just the really friendly and warm people. I remember I've so many vivid memories. I remember just so many. Is it Matt who wrote The Midnight Library? Matt Haig.
Matt Haig. Matt
Haig. I didn't even realize I was on a panel with this legend. This guy who's just huge. And I remember gobbing off me telling my stories. And Nicole Abadie, the amazing Nicole Abadie, was the master of the chat, and she's exceptional. She's amazing. And I realize I'm telling my bloody Boy Swallows Universe stories, and there's this incredibly humble guy, Matt, just going, I'll let this local idiot just tell his stories, where everyone is in that room. I said the room's full. They're there to see Matt. They're not there to see the freaking idiot from Bracken Ridge. But Yeah, it was, it's those wonderful learning experiences, and you meet people like him. And then Matt said some beautiful things, afterwards, like, almost like, good luck, man, hold on, strap yourself in. And it was really beautiful. So festivals are wonderful for that. And but mostly it's that sense of, I've had the most amazing things happen to me at festivals where someone will come up and go, I knitted you a pillow with a blue wren on it. And I've spent 6 months doing it. And that pillow now sits like, literally 6 meters away from, it's like, it's just, it's that type of stuff. Or just deep, someone coming up and slips you a letter across the signing table and they're like, don't open it now, just read it when you get back to the hotel. And then you go back to the hotel, you're thinking about your place in the world, and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right things? Or, I've got this complete and utter self-doubt about anything that comes out of my mouth. I'm not confident about, but then someone writes you a letter and slips it to you at a festival and it says, just keep going, please, because it's helping me, and it's just like, shit, man, it's just the greatest thing on earth.
And then it feels right. Then everything feels right again. And you're like, okay, that's why I'm doing it.
Everything feels right. Like everything you did, exactly. Everything you did, and it just always comes down to that, that reader thing, and it's like, and that's what it's my chance to, like, you should see me at these things, Nick. I'm a giddy idiot. Like, it's like, and my wife is always telling me, can you just turn the volume down a bit? And people have said it, like, they're like, oh my God. It's just, but I just get so excited. And that's a nervous reaction too. Like, I'm inherently kind of, I'm not as sort of, like I am in real life, like I am at a festival, but I'm just sort of buzzing, and you go through the ride of it and you're so grateful that someone's turned up. And so you just want to tell them everything. And it's like, I can't turn the tap off the storytelling. And it's sort of like, so they're quite funny things. And they suddenly feel, it might be a room filled with 500 people, but it suddenly feels very intimate. And you're telling some pretty heavy stuff. And, but it's just, that's how it feels. And Byron's just a great spot for that. Let me tell you, you will not find a more sympathetic or sort of more open audience than the crowd at the Byron Writers Festival.
Let's talk events that you're going to be involved in, because you've got a lot of stuff happening over that. I do. Those 2 days. The ones that I'm particularly interested in is the panel you'll be doing with Hannah Kent and Nigel Featherstone. Love and Other Stories, and the A Life of Crime one with Brian Brown and Steve Toltz. Tell me a little bit about these. Man. I'm excited.
Oh, well, Hannah Kent is just a hero of all of ours, and it will be so great, that panel with Hannah and Nigel Featherstone. We're all just talking about where we come at love from, and I can't wait to kind of be a kind of non-fiction kind of balance to Hannah's incredible way she talks about love in all of her books. And so that will be really special. That will be so special. I can't even believe she's sort of doing that, to be honest. Like, she's huge, and I just think it's really cool to sort of be able to kind of join a panel with her, and I'm really excited. And we're on a thing in Newcastle, and she got up in front of this stage at Newcastle in front of packed house. She just read this piece, and it was about love, and it was so freaking beautiful. So she's got a lyricism and a take on language that is so special, and I can see people really having quite the time. And I'll be sort of like coming in from the side with just some raw tales of people from the street, and I think it'll be a really fun one. And the crime one is insane. Matt Condon, who, like, mate, I sat near Matt as a journo. Matt Condon, deserves a gold Walkley for 1,000 things that he's done for true crime in my city, Brisbane. Basically exposed all kinds of things that people overlooked in regarding what we call the joke, police corruption and political corruption in Brisbane throughout the 70s and 80s. Matt's just devoted his past 10 years to exposing some of that stuff. He will be the guy chairing a chat with Steve Toltz, who I was reading A Fraction of the Whole, which is one of my all-time favorite books. I was reading that book just prior to writing Boycewell's Universe, and I can't wait to tell him, like, how much his zingers, his like zinger on every page type style of writing, mixed with just the unexpected structure of his writing and I can't wait to tell him how much I dig his stuff. And so, I'll try not to fanboy out too much on that one. But he's talking about crime, he'll be able to come at it from, his take on crime in A Fraction of the Whole, for example. I haven't had the chance to read Here Goes Nothing, but I've heard it's incredible, and I can't wait to. It's like I'm just reading. I've got a backlog of stuff, but anyway. And the other guy we're with is Byron Brown. So then you've got to understand email. You know how you do the like the meet and greet type email, and everyone goes like, "Hey, just CCing you in," and my wife and I just stand like. You got to know when I'm a kid, like the Shira Lee and Breaker Morant and like Cocktail, the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail. Like my brothers and I have this line, how to make a red eye. This is this line that Coughlin's Law. It's like the character that he plays in that film. It's like mythology in the Dalton boys family. And so to sort of be on stage with Byron Brown as he's talking crime, he's written this incredible book about sort of short stories about kind of criminal figures, and he just knows a lot about that world. He's devoted so many wonderful characters that are sort of in that space of Australian crime, and it'll just be incredible. And so but he's so funny, this beautiful Byron Brown. So on these dialogue, these email kind of exchanges where it's like, I'm like, I can't wait to be doing this with you guys, and Brown's like, I hope I can just get a word in edgeways with you two characters, and it's like, just like, yes, it's like just classic. You could just hear Byron Brown sort of typing that email, and it's like, yeah, man, it's like he's kind of huge in my world. So yeah, man, I cannot wait. I look forward to it. I mean, I look forward to festival all the time, but this one's really special. And then I've just got a wonderful thing with David Laser, one of my all-time favorite Australian journos, which is just him and I talking love as well. We're talking like this, Nick, like talking a bit more about just, love stories and how kind of cool it's been, and, to see people reading it and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot. I can't wait for anyone to come out. And then, right after, I promise, like I just, safely just would be able to just convey my thanks to everyone, like the giddy idiot that I become at these things. So that's like, I really can't wait. It's a very special festival. It's such a beautiful place to talk books.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your feature that you'll be doing on love stories with David Lesser. I reckon that'll be such a beautiful chat. Anytime you get up and talk about love stories, but also things that just it's infectious. It's infectious.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Thank you.
And on the subject of getting giddy at festivals, are there any particular events that you're looking at and like, I'm so excited, I need to go and see that? I'm fully aware I'll be doing events myself, and they might be clashing, but I really want to go see that.
Yeah, like I'm a massive poetry fan. Like I really like it. Yeah, there's a massive celebration of poetry featuring just like the best poets in Australia right now. I'm pretty keen on that. The journo in me is so keen on seeing Kerry O'Brien. He's got a memoir out. And just that guy, and I've had the pleasure of kind of meeting him backstage at a few things now, and he's just so beautiful. Like last time I saw him, I said he had hair like Robert Redford. And he was really like, it was a really great moment. I was like, look at that Robert Redford hair of yours. He has the most amazing head of hair. It's like, I'd kill for that hair. And Kate McClymont is coming up for her. And like, she's just an absolute hero of mine. Hannah Kent's, anything Hannah is doing, I'll be there. Anything else that Steve Toltz is doing, I'll be there. There's just the greatest collection of Indigenous writers, just across the world. It will be incredible. And it's one of those, my kids are coming, Nick. My kids are coming. My two daughters, Beth and Sylvia, are coming, and I can't wait to kind of get them into things that we sort of age appropriate. They're 15 and 13. Which means they're probably almost ready to go to any one of those things, to be honest. Like, I'm happy sort of taking them into any one of those events. So it's really cool. Like, you talk about, not to get too deep or anything, the greatest thing I've realized is that my daughters want to be a massive part of it. You know what I mean? Like, they want to hear, like, I've always been reticent to, I remember this one time coming home and I was like, you might hear this book I've written, Boycewell's Universe, all about grandma and how she kind of was a drug dealer in the 1980s. And they're like, grandma, really? And I'm like, yeah. And And then I was really reticent to talk with them about anything I kind of write about or where these books come from on a deeper level. Like all of these things are coming from kind of really, they're very optimistic, light, bright books that come from such dark places, and they're getting old enough now for me to start talking about the darker places where they come from. And that's been really sweet. And I think it'll be great for them to step into some of these sessions where a lot of other writers will be talking that kind of line of thought, where we are all doing this to be better humans and to sort of, because, you know, like I need to sort of do this stuff sometimes to be a better dad for them. And, you know, so it's really cool that they can be a part of it now, and they're right into reading. Like my daughters are just, you know, my eldest daughter read love stories, man. And she was just like, Dad, this is so great. Like she was just learning so much. You know, she leads a pretty lucky life, you know, like she's got a pretty fair shake of existence right now. And but for her to read that book and go, oh wow, there's like so many people who don't have love at all, you know, like so she's got 20 people who would jump in front of a bus for her. Some people have none. And it was so powerful to hear her come out and go, oh Dad, this really moved me, this thing. And it's like, man, that's the greatest thing. Talk about feedback, you know, and why you're doing it. And your daughter comes up and goes, how about that story about that 65-year-old trawler guy whose mum didn't want him when he was a kid, and he found love through his granddad, and found love through this whaler, you know, and all this stuff. And we're sitting at the dinner table talking love stories, things that her old man went and found on the street. Well, that's a love story in itself. That's the best love story there is. Me sitting at that dinner table talking to Beth.
Absolutely. And I love that your kids are going to come along as well to all of these events, and you get the chance to do it together.
Oh man, it's the greatest thing on earth, going to these festivals and looking out and you see some, oh man, I can't tell you how many times someone has sent me a pic of their daughter reading All Our Shimmering Skies and finding something in Molly Hook, or finding something in Eli Bell in Boyce's Universe. And the other day, this really, really beautiful, very well-known national treasure sent me a picture of her daughter, and she'd scribbled in Boyce's Universe. She's like 15, right? She's just like, and she's like, I'm so sick of love triangle love stories. She's like, because love triangles always just turn out as love corners. And she said, I'm really enjoying this kind of wacky world of Boyce's Universe. And then she said, look at what she's drawn. And she drew Gus, Eli's older brother Gus, all surrounded by this interplanetary scene, like sketched it in pencil on the book, embedded her basically. And then she flipped through and said, look at this picture. And she embedded her amazing sketches of everything she saw in her head as she was reading the book. And you're just going like, mate, like, okay, readers are everything, but young readers are just like the next level up, because you just go, wow, like imagine that, like that they're getting something out of that, like that. But yeah, man, no, it's a ride. It's a wild time. So I hope everyone brings their teenage kids to Byron Writers Festival.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much for everyone to do, which is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish up by wrapping up with some fun little quickfire questions.
Oh, please. I'm sorry if I've talked too long, Nick.
You should never apologize.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, hit me. Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. What is the perfect idea of a night with a book for you? Perfect.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. Pepper Jack Shiraz. Like it's this ridiculous. It's my version of a fancy red. It's about my peak red wine, Pepper Jack Shiraz. I've just had a bath, right? I never get a chance to have like a warm bath. And there's a Pepper Jack Shiraz. The Brisbane Broncos are playing the Parramatta Eels just softly, like on the television, just softly. And then I'm reading like a John le Carre. Like it's something that I don't have to go and go, I do this terrible thing, Nick, where I read brilliant writers and go, I wish I could write as good as this person.
Oh God,
yes. I do. It's terrible. Honestly, I do it all the time. And then it takes me out of the narrative. It's terrible. But as a John le Carre, you can sort of just go, no, I'm just in, because I don't have to be like John le Carre. And anyway, and then, you know, maybe my wife goes, hey, do you want a Tim Tam or something? And then she comes, and then we're just like, I don't know, something like that would probably be almost perfect. Yeah. And then the Broncos win by 2, so yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Great.
Yeah.
I love the specific details. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Sticking with the festival, and we're talking about stuff that you're excited for. Is there one event that you look at and go, okay, this is a subject or a topic or a discussion that something I don't know a lot about, and I would love to go and just be a sponge at that event and find out more about whatever it may be? Is there any particular one?
Well, it's that part of me definitely that wants to be the poet, and I sort of love anyone who can do it with thought and like is writing correctly, like writing poetry as it should be written. I write poetry, and I always have. Like it's something I did and it was sort of kind of led me into writing in many ways, and it was so great to just be able to just spitfire words on a page. But these people who structure these things, beautifully, that is the thing I would love to go. And I mentioned it first off when we were just talking about it, just sort of go and just soak up those people, talking about that. And there's the whole topic of discussion for this gathering of Indigenous poets is talking about poetry as kind of response to colonization, and I think that can be really powerful. I think, man, I mean, 42-year-old white guy from the Gap, Brisbane, that is absolutely something I should be at.
Yeah, poetry and decolonization. I know the exact event you're talking about, and I'm putting a mark down for that one.
And we were talking about Evelyn at the ARBIA Awards, and it was just so amazing to see her get up and read, one of her poems.
Of Country,
Oh man, it was just sort of like it just blew everyone in that room away. And so I'd love to take my girls to that. That's sort of bring my kids along. That's the sort of one, and let them soak up some of that stuff as well. Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite word?
Oh, that's great. I love petrichor. It's that petrichor is the thing when I was a kid. Petrichor is deep to me. Petrichor is the smell of rain on bitumen after the rain's gone away. And I'm telling you, I thought, Nick, this is so ridiculous. I thought that smell was kind of built for me when I was 12 years old. It was so ridiculous. Like how, this freaking housing commission house we had in Brackenridge, you would lean out the window and there'd be a big rainstorm. Like, Brisbane gets the full on, storms in the afternoon in summer. And then you smell the petrichor, and I felt so alive, man. Like, and then when I'd smell that smell, like it's sort of that smell of ozone or something. It's some sort of reaction in the air that is letting off this beautiful smell, and it was such a warm place, and everything felt possible when I smelt that, when I had the petrichor experience. And then when I was like 35, I read somewhere that this smell that I did not have a word for is called petrichor, Petrichor, and it's kind of my favorite word for that reason, because it was such a late discovery. And then I should throw in universe as well. I love universe.
That's a great word.
I love it. It's a great word. Yeah, it's so big. It's like it's so impossible to catch. And it's sort of reminds me permanently that I'm the luckiest mofo on earth just to be here talking to you.
Oh, shucks. And great. I love it. Great words. I love that. That's made my day. And then finally, I could talk to you forever, but I'm aware we have to wrap it up. Last question. You get into a lift and the person that you've always wanted to meet in all your dreams, living or dead, is in there.
Oh, Nick.
Who is it?
Oh, that's so funny. Look, I've got to be truthful, and my wife would just say it would be ridiculous if I didn't say Eddie Vedder. It's like Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of Pearl Jam. Nick, if we had another hour, or one day I should write a book about it. I could write you the most adventurous nonfiction book, kind of gonzo type journalism style book about my attempts to meet Eddie Vedder from the age of about 13 to my early 40s. And that has taken me, I've pretended to be a roadie. I have stalked around hotel foyers. I have tried to creep into backstages of concerts. I've tried to hide out in freaking alleyways. It's the most embarrassing aspect to my character, my kind of desire to meet this guy Eddie Vedder, because and it's just, that guy just meant the world to me when I, at a really, really pivotal time. Like, I should have put it in Boy Swallows Universe, but you just couldn't. But because they would have taken up 3 chapters. But that guy just sort of meant everything to me. And so I have to be honest with myself. And then, like, I've even analyzed what I would say in the elevator, and it's like, it's almost like the elevator has to stop. Like, because I would faint first off, but the elevator has to have some sort of malfunction, because then we'd have a little bit more time for me to ease into, we get over my sort of weird kind of 30-year search to hang out with this guy. And then we ease into, like, topics like surfing and the wonders of Daniel Day-Lewis movies and so forth. So it's sort of like, it has to just be this moment where we're both stuck in this predicament, where it's not just me trying to quickly go in the space of 10 floors going down. You really mean a lot to me? Yeah. It's like, I could never convey to that guy. You know what I mean? It's like that weird thing. It's so funny, my fanboy of that guy. It's like, it's so big. Like, it's just, yeah, he'd be definitely the one, Nick. Yeah. So it's almost embarrassing for me to say. It's so embarrassing. But,
not at all. Excuse me. It's the Pearl Jam. The Pearl Jam is it. It's fantastic.
Oh, great. Oh, that's good. That's good. It's like saying, I say it at high school sometimes, and I feel like I'm talking about the Eagles. Like, it's the equivalent of me talking about, someone in the generation above us talking about the Eagles. And because these kids look at me like, who the hell is Pearl Jam, and what is Pearl Jam? But it's like, they all know Nirvana, which is great, which is a start. Like, it's a really great start.
They'll get there. They'll get there eventually.
They'll get there. Yeah. Eddie Vedder, that's it. Yeah.
Love it. I could honestly talk to you forever, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Trent, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the Byron Writers Festival. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful time there. Yeah,
I can't wait to see everyone at Byron. And Nick, you're amazing. Thanks for all you do, man. And congrats on so many episodes now. I'm so proud of you, man. It's so great to see this thing just thriving, because you're just taking time to talk to us writers, and we really appreciate it. So thanks for everything, mate.
Absolutely love it. For everyone listening, head over to byronwritersfestival.com for tickets and more information. And I'm actually going to go and head over to my second guest for this podcast, the one and only Evelyn Araluen. And now, through the magic of editing, I'm joined by Evelyn Araluen, who, if you don't know about, you should. Frankly, her beautiful collection, Drop Bear, has picked up, amongst many awards, the 2022 Stellar Prize, the ARBIA Award for Small Publishers Adult Book of the Year, and of course was highly commended for the 2021 Anne Elder Award. And she'll be featuring in multiple events as part of the Byron Writers Festival. Evelyn, welcome back to Tell Me What to Read.
Hello, love to be here. How you going?
I'm good, thank you. And it also, first of all, I'll add that I'm also recording on Wongal country, which where Booktopia works every day, so pay my respects.
I'm down here on Wurundjeri country at the moment. I'm down here kicking it in Naarm, and always paying respects to the beautiful custodians and caretakers of that country. It's a lovely space to be a guest down here. So
yeah. How are you going? You've had a nuts year. It's been absolutely insane.
Pretty crazy year, gonna be honest. I'm really trying to process just the general day-to-day busyness, and then I sit back down and I'm kind of like, oh wow, I've been doing a lot at the moment. So just trying to have a normal life in some regard, and then I get to talk to cool people like you, and then I'm like, no, this is not quite normal. This is definitely a heightened level of experience that I am going through at the moment. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing okay and taking time out for yourself every now and then. And I don't blame you for going like, wow, stuff has happened, because Drop Bear's gone everywhere, man. Like,
crazy.
Yeah.
Not expected, not anticipated. Like, that's not exactly the function of poetry, to be perfectly honest. Like, I remember walking into Penrith's book, Dimmicks in Penrith, and just going like, oh my God, they're stocking it? What the hell? And that just being the most astonishing experience I actually could have like processed in any particular kind of way. The fact that it got into Penrith Dimmicks just blew my mind. No other form of success could possibly match that. And it's just gotten crazier and crazier from that moment.
Oh, absolutely. And well, I'm not surprised that it got the response that it did, because I mean, the book covers so much. I mean, we talked about it when we were talking Stella Prize, earlier this year, but I mean, the book is humor, there's candor, there's anger, there's a fierce love of country, but also, you're talking about the ongoing trauma First Nations people deal with. You put a lot of care in what you had to say, is what I mean. And yeah. So, were there any like reactions since it's come out that have like even surprised you? You've gone like, okay, you took that from it, which is interesting.
I've had a couple of really, truly like bizarre and wonderful moments, and a few less than positive ones, I'll be honest. But like, I had somebody come up and they had a really detailed theory about the book. They were like, okay, so in this poem, there are 43 sections and there are 43 poems in the whole book. And can I read these 43 sections in correspondence with the 43 poems? And I just was sitting there being like, genuinely didn't know that, son. Had no idea. And I tried to explain that, and he was just like really disappointed. So I kind of had to respond being like, oh yeah, well, there is a meaning to that, I guess, I suppose. And he's like, if I work it out, can I email you about it? And I was like, okay, sure, mate. So there's a conspiracy theory or something like that going on with it that I'm not fully aware of, or that I haven't fully understood. So yeah, and you get people who, and that comes from just like a real place of like, I got really involved in this book. I really enjoyed reading it. I had a lot of thoughts, and it's a complete like wonder and honor for me to have that and to have had someone do that with my book, because I've done that with other people's books. And if I had access to the authors, I would be asking equally, intense questions. So that kind of reaction has been like delightful, and I've just been so blessed by it, because you just when you read a book and that you adore, you don't ever imagine that someone will have that same feeling about your book. That's just something that just never occurs to you. So I've loved that kind of angle. I've had a few, you get bad reviews and you get bad comments and such, and people who, a lot of people have found the style perhaps not quite what they're accustomed to, which is totally fine, absolutely fine. There's really academic moments in the book. And I don't expect it to be loved by everyone, and a big part of that is that I didn't necessarily think that this would ever have the kind of distribution for like a general readership. I thought, poetry, that's niche, I'll write in a relatively niche way. So that kind of thing I understand. I've had a few people who've sort of really felt personally offended by the style and felt personally offended that it wasn't exactly what they like and they prefer, which is an interesting reaction to have for a thing that you bought to read. And then probably the weirdest is kind of people who have said, I read a review recently, and you're not meant to read the online reviews, you're not meant to read like your Goodreads reviews and that kind of stuff. But there was one reviewer who was like, listen, at the end of it, I actually didn't feel like I knew anything about the poet at all, which was amazing for me, because I felt it was a pretty honest and vulnerable collection. And then also to be honest, I'm like, did you need to know me? Like, is that what happens? You buy the book and now we're mates? I don't know.
It's so funny how like poem, like your collection and stuff that you write goes off and has a life of its own. It's like your baby, and then suddenly, and people interact with it, and then like they're reacting with the text in a way that's like different to even how you envisioned it when you wrote it. I always find it so fascinating. Have there been any poets that you've also like, since you've kind of done that collection, that you've also gone like, actually on the subject of like, people reacting to my poetry is crazy, like in such a intense, visceral way? Has there been anyone else that you've discovered and that people should go and check out?
Oh, great question. I mean, I'm always really interested in finding new poetry. And I mean, I always love, I have like a really strong set of classic writers that I love to go back to. And a lot of them are First Nations, which is really exciting. I definitely recommend if people are looking for more poetry. We've had a lot published in like the last year that's been super, super exciting. And we're starting to see some of that now on this round of prizes and such. And I'd say, like, instead of necessarily just giving even an individual shout out, I would love to give a shout out to Vagabond Press, which is a kind of smaller, really artsy, really beautifully designed poetry press. And they publish poets that like are already really well known, like Bella Lee and Anne Vickery, like some really great Australian poets that have like a really wonderful impact. But they just have the most stunning production values, and they've had a bunch of books published recently that I've really like loved reading. One, Emily Stewart's book just won a really massive prize. I think it was called the Helen Ann Bell, which was run by the University of Sydney, and like that's a manuscript prize for women poets in Australia. And so I'm really excited to get my hands on that one, because like that is just like such an incredible, it's a really great thing to be encouraging in poetry today. That, you know, yeah, we're advocating for women, and we're advocating for this particular form that just doesn't get much support. So I've been loving what Vagabond's doing, and setting up that prize and really like advocating and making a space has been incredible. And then you also have the experience of like, you know, just when you publish a book and then you enter it into book prizes. I've had just like such a great experience being shortlisted alongside a lot of other writers that I deeply admire, and you know, to share a shortlist with some of them is absolutely incredible. Like, you know, I was shortlisted alongside Elfie Shiosaki for the Stella Prize, and I just absolutely adore her book Homecoming, and I think it's just like so gorgeous and tender, and have really loved going back on that one. It's a heartbreaking book, but it is really stunning. So yeah, they don't tell you about how, you know, that whole experience unfolds of getting to see your work positioned alongside other people. And then, you know, that's terrifying because you're reading them like Lucy Van's The Open, and you know, Eunice Andrade's Take
No
Care.
Document. Oh, Take Care. Sorry, yeah.
No,
Take Care.
Anwen Crawford as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God, No Document is stunning. And you read them and you're kind of like, oh wow, I love this way too much. Like,
Yep.
damn, I'm meant to be advocating for myself here, and I'm just reading all of these incredible books, and I'm like, man, I have got no chance. And of course, all of this stuff is subjective, and you know, you never know what the judges are going to say and what their decisions are going to be. But it's been a real terrifying joy to be in those conversations and to have my stuff read, you know, be positioned alongside some of these writers that either I've already been aware of for a bit, or that I discovered in the process of, you know, this last publication and prize cycle. So it's been a really good time for poetry, and hopefully it's the start of some really cool stuff even further.
Yeah, look, it's exciting to see it. It just feels like it's getting its dues, because it's
Mm-hmm.
you know, we talked about it earlier that it's been such a underappreciated art form for such a while, and I think to see it, people start to really kind of go, hey, there is so much value to this, is fantastic. And talking about, you know, other, you know, authors and poets, you're going to be be alongside a lot of your contemporaries at the Byron Writers Festival, so which is super exciting. You know, what's the significance? You've been to a couple of festivals now at this point. What's the significance of, you know, festivals like this for you?
It's a really interesting kind of way of stepping outside of my day-to-day and reminding myself that I'm a writer, actually. And you know, in my kind of normal work, I'm usually running around and trying to do 50 million different things that are deeply humbling, you know, like I sign forms and submit acquittals and teach students, and I have a pretty, I'd say actually quite mundane life the majority of the time. And then, you know, you jump on a plane or you get in a car and you're suddenly in this space that's wholly and solely dedicated to writing and to thinking about writing, and you're interacting with people that, you know, sometimes I grew up reading some of these authors and really like just had their works on my shelf my whole life. And And then sometimes they're people who I, had never heard of before, but am suddenly just like wowed by not only their craft, but also by the dedication to their practice and to hear them speak. And it just really is like a complete transformation to be just so intensely immersed in a space of writing that's dedicated to writing. And, and I used to jump on the train and go into the city to go to see the Sydney Writers Festival. I started doing that when I was a teenager, and I'd go and see people speaking. I think the first one that I ever went to all by myself was a panel that had Tony Birch on it, and, getting to hear him speak and watching him basically take down a really rude person in the audience was just like one of the funniest and most educative experiences that I've ever had. And years later I've gotten to work with Tony, and I've been interviewed by him, I've interviewed him, and so it's a complete transformation. And I sometimes do have to pinch myself about, because it wasn't ever a role or a position that I saw myself being in. And I think especially now, the importance of writers' festivals really can't be underestimated, because we've had 2 years of really limited or staggered or completely modified writers' festivals. The Byron Festival's been cancelled 2 years in a row, and and it's been a really last minute cancellation too, which I know would have been like a huge financial burden, a huge emotional burden as well for the people who are putting all of their energy into organizing this. And they've really come out of that experience with an absolutely excellent and packed program. And it's I think it's going to be like a really great recentering of the value of not only just of writers' festivals, but also of the more regionally based writers' festivals, and kind of destabilizing the centrality of the major cities to actually think about the role that people still, in regional communities, or I don't know if you call Byron a regional community, but they definitely do have a lot of speakers and participants who come from outside of those really tightly bound ideas of the city. And so I think it's going to be a really great experience. It's going to be about, again, centering writers and centering arts workers. And it's a long overdue one, this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk events you're involved in, because you're doing a hell of a lot. You're doing a hell of a lot at this festival.
Yeah.
You're doing, doing an ABC North Coast live broadcast with a whole bunch of people. Of course, you'll be doing a feature with Drop Bear with Daniel Browning.
Which is amazing.
I want to jump straight though to the feature event you're involved with, and also poetry as an act of decolonization. Tell me everything. Tell me everything about it. I want to know.
Well, I mean, so for the feature event, just how blessed am I? Because Daniel's really been somebody who's been involved in my writing career as a formal sort of career from the get-go. I, submitted a poem for the Nakata Brophy Prize for Young Indigenous Writers, and Daniel read the poem, and he resonated with it being about learning Bunjalung language off country. And he was like, come on the radio and do this show with me, which was just, oh my God, such a wild experience to step up and do something like that. And I was just really blessed to have his support from so early on. And he's just such a warm and smart and sharp person. So I mean, I'm hoping he really pushes and prods on it, because he knows that book and he's been a part of that book in many ways. Actually, one of the poems was commissioned for a project he worked on with the Urban Theatre Company. So I have so much love for him, and to be able to talk about Drop Bear with him is really just such a real dream, just because of just because of his kindness and his soul, and to be able to do that on Bunjalung country too. And poetry as an act of decolonisation is going to be really cool, because that's a conversation that that I have been really interested in for a long time, and the ideas of what poetry's political capacity is, what its anti-colonial, decolonial capacity would be. And again, to be in conversation with Grace Lucas Pennington, who's going to be facilitating that, because I think just Grace is an absolute dream and just one of the coolest people out there. So happy to be a part of that. And also Huda and Anne-Marie, these are people who who are out there in community and who are out there ensuring that poetry does always have a felt performative, but also, also political, and also really, just really tangible presence in community and in space. Obviously, Anne-Marie works for Red Room Poetry Company, and that's really about getting poetry actually, into the spaces that we inhabit, to remind us that poetry does have a space, has a purpose everywhere. So I'm really hoping that for that conversation, we actually really do get to push, and we get to really question, okay, if poetry has this capacity to do decolonial work, what does that look like? How do we action that? How do we sustain momentum for those kinds of actions? And I'm really open to the possibility that the answer to all of those questions is, poetry isn't enough. So here is what we have to do, and here is where we have to go, and to push that further. And I think in a lot of other contexts, the conversation wouldn't be able to get to those really hard questions, and to really be able to push and to to question the possibilities and the limitations. But I actually think this is a dream setup to have that yarn. So I'm really keen for it, and I'm really keen to just see where we all land together in that conversation.
It is. It's one I'm particularly excited for when looking at this whole schedule, because, often when you want to try and be an ally for this sort of positive change, it can be very difficult to see where things lie. So that to actually have that discussion, to see where, to sit down and listen to people who will be driving key forces for it, I think is especially exciting. Do you have any events you're keen for?
Yeah, so I think the one that I am just so excited to sit down and listen to is going to be the making of Bunjalung Yari Indigenise, which is just going to be so cool. I'm not in it. I'm just going to be in the audience and just listening to it. That one's facilitated by Rhoda Roberts, and that's got Eleanor Bancroft, Daniel Browning and Kylie Caldwell. And so that's going to be a really incredible yarn, just I think about this project that's been going on for a long time that I've kind of been hearing whispers about, but also about, language and about culture and the role of arts workers and dreamers and storytellers in community, and being on country doing that. So I'm really keen for that one. There's a couple that I think I'm going to be trying to, as much as possible, duck in and out of. I think it's obviously got a really excellent show of First Nations writers, and that's going to be really wonderful to see. I'm a little bit gutted that I'm on for a few sessions. I'm on at the same time as some really great speakers, which I'm a little bit upset about. And I think it's going to be really great though. They've got everything from stuff about self-publishing and then they've got women in media. They've got one that I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to get to, but I really want to see. Australian Politics is a Joke, which I think is going to be comedy, but it might not be. And I'm kind of hoping that it's actually just going to be a really, really confronting session. We'll see. So I'm actually just I haven't been this excited for a while, but I think the one that's really going to blow the house down, and just the list of names alone is going to be phenomenal. Veronica Gorry, Marcia Langton, Chelsea Watergo and Declan Fry on Life in the Colony Today. So that one is just going to be I think that one's going to be real controversial. I want to be front and center. I want to see exactly how that one goes down.
Oh, yes, please. It's so many interesting topics and subjects to cover. And God, I wish we had more time to cover all of them. There's so many. I've got to wrap this up, but I usually like to finish the podcast with some fun little quickfire questions for you. Sticking with the festival for the first one, we've talked about it. You've talked about events that you really like and you're keen for, but is there one in terms of an actual subject matter that you look at and you go, okay, there's something that I don't know enough about and I really want to learn more about that particular subject?
Yeah, actually, listen, I'm pretty keen on hearing some of the political ones, but also, so there's one called the Mungo Panel. Has media lost its mojo? And like, I work in media. Overland obviously is like very left wing, and we do a lot more of an emphasis on literature. But I am trying to, as much as possible, increase my media literacy. And so that should be interesting. It's got Kerry O'Brien and Barry Cassidy in it, and like again, those are like, I grew up hearing your voice on the radio and on TV, so I just like want to just hear them speak. It's their old man ABC accents. So and hopefully I learned something from it. But it's definitely like old man ABC accent. Get in my ear. Love that.
Yeah, love. I think Kerry O'Brien is such an interesting. He's such an interesting character. Obviously, you only think of him from 7:30, but he's lived such a fascinating and interesting life.
He has, and he and I once got drunk at the end of a festival, like horrendously drunk together. And we were arguing about the Algerian Revolution, and he's just like, you're an infant. What are you even talking about? And it was great. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I immediately called everybody that I knew. So that's probably one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. I'm not going to lie.
I am green with envy. What the hell? That's so cool.
I know. It just beautiful, beautiful experience for me. I was terrified the whole time, but I think I held my own.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have a favorite word?
Do I have a favorite word?
As a poet.
As a poet, oh, you know what, I do, and but it's more of like, it's a trope, as opposed to like an actual like thing. I have this habit of finding different ways to talk about things that are holy, like not full of holes, but like holy in some kind of religious sense. Now, can I just say, I'm not religious. I was never raised religiously. I got no religious context. I've got spiritual context from, Aboriginal spirituality. I don't have anything to do with the Bible or nothing like that. And for some reason, I love the word holy. Who knows? I think I'd burn if I walked into a church, but I don't know. I love some of their rhetoric. So, yeah, it's a real problem. I think I've used it a lot in Drop Bear. I'm not going to lie.
Love it. You get into a lift, and the person that you have always wanted to meet in all your life is in there. Who is it?
Oh, I mean, Kerry O'Brien. Michael Ondaatje. Michael Ondaatje, my favorite novelist ever, my favorite poet ever. And my boyfriend once saw him in a Gloria Jean's cafe during the Sydney Writers Festival in Broadway Shopping Centre. And he just said that he was the most arresting experience to see that guy who just is so smart, and he's clearly looking around, gazing at all of these people. And I think if I walked into an elevator with Michael Ondaatje, my favorite writer ever, I'd have to just walk right out and then leave the building. I would not be able to handle it. I want it to happen. I'm not ready for it to happen.
Thank God I didn't ask the follow-up question. You've got time for one question to ask them, and what would you ask? Which would I'd be saying, what floor you going to? Just get out.
I'd just sob. Be like, oh, can you sign my whatever I've got on me? Yeah, no, I'd be dead.
Last question. What is perfect idea of a night with a book for you?
Oh, I mean, luckily I get to have that every night. I've set up my living room perfectly. I've got a comfy chair. I've worked out all of my mood lighting. I've got 3 lamps arranged through the room, and the light gets to sit very prettily through the leaves of whatever plants I haven't killed yet. You get a candle, you have a glass of wine or kombucha if you're being good, and just to sit in beautiful low mood lighting. My dog either sitting on top of me or completely ignoring me, whatever she wants for that moment. And it's just, I care so much about setting myself up in a beautiful place to read. Some people can just read wherever. I like it to be a full-blown experience. So yeah, candles, lamps, couch, wine, whole shebang.
Perfection achieved. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I could honestly talk to you all day. Honestly could. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. Evelyn, thank you so much. It's been a privilege chatting with you once again.
Thank you so much for having me. Always love it.
So for everyone listening, head to byronwritersfestival.com to grab some tickets and more information. And you can, of course, check out Trent Dalton and Evelyn Araluen at multiple events throughout the 2-day festival, which runs from the 24th to the 26th of August. You'll catch us in our next episode, but until then, thanks for listening and never stop reading.